Thank you so much for inviting me along to speak to you all this evening about men and work. It's fitting, I think, since I'm talking about work, that I'm actually speaking from my place of work at this point in time. So hence the sort of the rather boring background. I know there's a little thermostat in the corner, but please ignore that. But hopefully we can have a great evening just talking about men and their work. And tonight's lesson is called Risk and Reward. And hopefully you'll find out it will become wonderfully clear why as we go through the class. Now, first of all, I need to say to God be the glory. I'm going to share some things this evening which are really about how I feel I handle my work, but also about my work, about who I am, about what I do. And there are some good things, and all the credit, all the glory, all the thanks, all the goodness for the good stuff goes to God. I take responsibility for all the bad stuff, but all the good stuff, I'm just putting a marker in the ground now, all the glory goes to God. Because I really feel like, Luke chapter 12, verses 27 to 31, Jesus says this. He says, "Consider how the wildflowers grow. They don't labor or spin, yet not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If this is how God clothes the grass of the field, which are here today and tomorrow is thrown into fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Don't worry about it, for the pagan world runs after such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well." You know, I look at my life and I see in so many ways that maybe the positive things, maybe the admirable things, maybe the nice things, the good things in my life God's given me simply because I made that choice just to look for him. And he's been abundantly gracious and generous and kind and compassionate despite my weaknesses and my failings. So all the glory goes to God, all the thanks and praise goes to God. But let me give you a bit of background about me, what I do. I'm a lawyer, and I've been in legal practice for almost 28 years now. I kind of grew up wanting to become a lawyer. My dad brainwashed me when I was 5 years old, and he said, "What do you want to be, a lawyer or a doctor?" And it was very clear, because my dad's a lawyer, it's very clear in my mind that he wanted me to be a lawyer. So I kind of grew up feeling, this is my purpose and my meaning in life, to be a lawyer. And I spent the first sort of 8 or 9 years of my legal practice working with other lawyers. So working in a practice, which meant that we had many, many clients, different clients who came to us with all sorts of challenges, issues, problems, things to do. But for about the last 20 years or so, I've spent my time working for companies. So I've worked for about 4 or 5 different companies over the last 20 years. And I work as the in-house lawyer for that company, dealing with all of their work, all of their issues, all of their challenges. And I currently work for a global business. And on this little map, you see here where our offices are around the world. I've managed to, I think, make it to all of them except Poland and Paris. I haven't been to Thebes, but I've been to most of the other ones. And as the general counsel for this global business, we've got a turnover of about 400 million euros a year. We manufacture products, and I deal with all the legal work for this entire global business. That's my job. And it keeps me very busy. I can often find myself talking to the Australians at sort of 7 a.m. in the morning. And then I talk to, it sort of follows the time zones. I talk to chaps in Hong Kong and the Europeans. I'm still up at sort of 10, 11 at night talking to the Americans, when the Australians wake up again and expect to talk to me. So it's work for me can be challenging. But I think that, we can all have different perspectives on work. But I think as Christians, one of the things or the thing that's most important about work is to really get a spiritual perspective. Now, you can have this kind of perspective, where you may love your work. And you might look at this photograph and say, well, hang about, Mark, that's a woman. This is a men's meeting. Why is it that we've got a picture of a woman, who seems to really love her work? Well, I mean, sadly, I couldn't find a picture of a guy in a similar sense of, I really enjoy my work. This was the closest I could get to sort of a thumbs up. So you may feel this way about your work. It may be, yeah, I really enjoy it. Put my thumbs up, it's a good thing. Or you may feel differently about your work. You might feel that, when Monday morning starts, it just feels like an eternity until you get to Friday. And then when Friday comes, you think, oh my goodness, the weekend is so short. Or you might, feel that you wake up on a Friday morning thinking, yes, this is it, the weekend is here. And then you realize it's Thursday, or worse than that, it's Wednesday. But you might also sort of, have loads of work, have a huge workload, and you're focused on the light at the end of that tunnel. And then you discover the workload is permanent and the light at the end of the tunnel has been switched off, and work is going to continue to be challenging. But whatever perspective, whatever view you take of your work right now, I think the key thing, as I said, is that idea of a spiritual perspective of work. And just some useful background. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 and 9 and verse 15, it says, now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east in Eden. And there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then in verse 15 it says, the Lord God took the man and put him in the garden to do what? To work it and to take care of it. Even before the fall of man, even before Adam and Eve sinned, men had to work. And, you see the fall of man later on in Genesis chapter 3. And I've highlighted the key verses, the work that may have been fairly light and easy work, tending to the garden in Genesis 2, in Genesis 3, after he sins, it becomes painful toil. He says, through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you. So whereas the Garden of Eden may have had this great weed control fabric to stop all the weeds from coming up, when they were ejected from the garden, you've got thorns and thistles. It's going to be hard work, sweat of your brow, that you'll eat your food until you return to the ground. So it kind of says to me that we were made to do some sort of work, and it's important, I think, to get a real spiritual perspective as we live in this world now, where it is thorns and thistles, sweat from our brow, that we get a real perspective, a spiritual perspective of what work should actually be like. And I think that spiritual perspective is, how can I do well at work, despite the fact that it's hard labor, or can be. And I think two things help me, and that's really what I want to share this evening, things that help me deal with the world of work and deal with the challenges of work, or the challenges that I face at work. And the two things are about risk and reward. And those are my 2 points this evening, risk and reward. And if you work and you're working in a commercial business, you'll know that your business involves risk and reward. Even if you're working in a charitable organisation, there's still that element of risk and reward. Now, if you work for the government, there's probably risk, but actually probably not much of a reward, but there's a risk. But then if the government runs out of money, they just raise the taxes, so the risk isn't that great. But we're going to talk about risk and reward that will help us, hopefully, or that help me, that may help you, but help me to deal with the world of work. So let's talk in reverse order. Let's take reward first. And to me, reward, this idea of reward, is remembering what my true reward is. That really helps me deal with work and helps me ground myself when I'm in the world of work. Now, I love this. It says, a job is a job. It's a way to pay for a living, but that's it. Don't let it define your happiness. You work to live, not live to work. Work on what makes you happy. I said at the beginning that my dad kind of brainwashed me as a 5-year-old, and my whole purpose in life was to become a lawyer. And I remember that after 20 years of pursuing this goal. After 4 years of university study, a year of professional exams, 2 years of on-the-job training, in essence, an apprenticeship, 6 years trying to get there on top of all the other academic study. I kind of made my goal. And I felt this whole sense of an anticlimax, disillusionment, because I kind of got there and I felt, is this it? And, for me now, what really helps me with work and putting it into that spiritual perspective is understanding that work isn't my life. Work isn't the most important thing to me. Psalm 37, verses 4 to 6, it says this, take delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him and he will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. I remember reading this when I first read this, very similar to Luke 12 about, seek God first, he'll give you the things that you need in your life as well. He'll give you those earthly things that you need to survive. But I remember, I can't remember how many years ago, but it was a good number of years ago, I read this again and I thought, you know what? The thing that I desire most in my life is a relationship with God. The thing that I desire most and I want most of all is to be with God. It's to be close to God, to have my sins forgiven, to have God's Spirit live in my heart, to be his child, to have him be my father. And I read this verse again and I thought, if I delight myself in God, he'll give me the desire of my heart, and that's to have a relationship with him. It's not the earthly things, it's not the material things, it's not the possessions. But what helps me is this idea of saying, my real desire isn't to be this super successful lawyer, isn't the paycheck, although it's nice at the end of the month. It isn't all the earthly things, it isn't the status, it isn't the position, it isn't the material possessions. But what helps ground me and do well in the world of work from a spiritual perspective is really understanding what my real reward is, my righteous reward is a relationship with God. And that's where my focus and my energies have to be directed. There are 3 things that I try to do. I say try because I don't always succeed, but I try and do 3 things. First of all, I recognize, as I said, what my true reward is. It is God. And that means that above all things, God has got to be my priority. It's not as though my work is the key thing that defines who I am and brings me or gives me this sense of fulfillment. It's there and it serves a purpose. It helps me look after my family. It helps me give contribution to the church so the gospel can be spread. It helps me, do all sorts of things, rest and relax and have choices and freedoms. But it's not what my life is all about. My reward is God. When I'm at work, I talk about my life. It says in Colossians chapter 3, it says, since then you've been raised with Christ, set your heart on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. For you died and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. It talks about Christ being our life. He's my life. So I talk about Christ at work. And that's not just the sense of, oh, I'm going to invite someone to church. Yes, I'll do that. But I just talk about Christ because he's what defines me. And I have conversations with people about what I do and why I do it, and things I believe, and the things that are important to me, the values. I remember having a conversation with my former boss, former CEO, and on his first day in the company, first time we met, I got the conversation round to God and Christianity and my faith and the things that are important to me because they're important to me. And the next day, when we had that sort of first conversation at dinner, the next day, when we sat down for our first kind of one-to-one together, you know, he said to me, I was really challenged by the conversation you had with me yesterday. He said, I've got a faith, but I always feel this sense of reluctance to talk about my faith, to talk about my belief in the world of work. And he says, I felt so challenged by you just openly and freely sharing the things that really matter to you. And we were having, and then we started having great conversations. We spent time praying together. He came along to one of our online services. Now he lives in Germany, so I'm still staying in touch with him. He's now left the company. But talk about your life. I talk about my life because it's so important to me. And I want people to know what's important to me. And the other thing I try to do is I try to maintain my integrity. There's this little lawyer's prayer that I found on the online. And it says, Lord, grant that I may be able in argument, accurate in analysis, strict in study, candid with clients, and honest with adversaries. Stand beside me in court, and this is the key thing I love. Stand beside me in court so that today I shall not, in order to win a point, lose my soul. You know, I think that so often in the world of work, we can compromise and we can lose our integrity by not holding firm to our Christian faith and our Christian convictions. But one of the things I really try to do is just to maintain that sense of integrity. You know, I had I've had PAs and secretaries in the past, and then somebody will ring up and they'll say, can I speak to Mark? And my PA or my secretary will say, sorry, he's in a meeting, or sorry, he's out, when I'm actually here in the office. And I remember going up to them on more than one occasion, different ones, saying, listen, just tell him the truth. Do not lie. Tell him I'm here and I don't want to talk to him. And they did. And the earth didn't end. You know, the world of work didn't sort of, you know, slowly sort of crumble and fall apart. But I think that sometimes, all too easily, we can compromise our convictions, we can compromise our integrity in the world of work, whether it's to fit in with the way the work is supposed to be structured, whether it's to look good or to not look weird. I think one of the really key things that helps me is that idea of, no, I'm going to maintain my integrity. If people don't like me for who I really am, this Christian, this disciple, first or foremost, but that's just too bad. I'm going to be a disciple. I'm going to be righteous in what I do. And I think if you hold on to this idea of, or at least I try to hold on to this idea, these three things, that they help me stay grounded and remember what my true reward is all about, the true priorities in my life. Now, second point, if you understand what your real reward is, you'll then see that there can be certain risks that can be a challenge to you keeping hold of that real reward or living a life in a way that is consistent. And I see there are risks in my life. There are risks that I face that are a challenge for me. And I think that for me, this idea of risk is understanding the need to manage risk. And if I manage the risks involved in the world of work, then I can do well. It can go very, very well for me. Now, for many, many years, this was the only risk that I knew about, the wonderful World Conquest game. I should also say for many, many years, this game was banned in my household because I do remember I used to share a flat with Mike Farrell and a few other brothers. And Mike was dating Joanne, who's now his wife. I was dating Dawn, who's now my wife. And we would be playing, you know, we'd probably start playing Risk in the evening, early evening, when I say the Sunday evening, about 7 o'clock. And we would literally be playing Risk at 3 in the morning, still trying to take over the world. You know, by day on the Sunday, we were trying to convert the world. By night, we were trying to conquer the world. And what would happen, inevitably would happen, is that your girlfriend would call you in the middle of your term, and you're about to sort of take Africa or take North America, or go on a on this sort of this battle plan that you've developed through the whole of Asia, and then your girlfriend rings, you think, no. So and soon enough they discovered that we were not as, we didn't talk as much when we were in the middle of these risk games. So for a long time, risk was banned in my household, at least until my two sons grew up and they were old enough to play it with me. But the risk I want to talk about isn't the board game. John chapter 4, verses 3 to 8, it's a different kind of risk. And these are the risks that I see in my life. Talking about Jesus, it says, so he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called ICOC, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. I read this verse in John, and for me, there are two risks that I face in my life. Quite legitimately, Jesus, after and to rest and to veg out, to not work, I've done my work. And that can often compromise the ministry. The reward that's most important to me, a relationship with God for me and helping other people build relationships with God, it can compromise me being tired and feeling a sense of entitlement to rest after a day of work. It can be a challenge. It also says his disciples had gone into the town to buy food. Quite legitimate. You've got needs, you've got things you've got to deal with. And I've got things, we all do. We've got bills to pay, we've got things that we've got to do, we've got things to plant in the garden and lawns to mow and all sorts of things, a long list of things that your wife wants you to do, and a list of things that you want to do, and those lists tend not to be aligned very well, but we have to work it out. But there can be legitimate things that I find I want to do or have to do that can take me away, distract me from the real reward in my life, which is Christ. And I don't know what the risks are for you in terms of your work. It might be the same sense, it might be the same risks, this idea of, I'm just tired at the end of the day, I've got so much, I can't catch up with life. It might be other things. But whatever risks you face, what I try to deal with those risks, how I try to deal with those is, here's another risk I didn't mention, actually, this is the risk about not actually getting home at all, or getting home very, very late. But how I try to deal with those risks is this, it's a really simple thing. It's a risk management process. And again, if you're in business, you'll know about risk management, you identify a risk, and I've identified mine. The two key things for me, tiredness at the end of the day, and a sense of I'm entitled to do nothing. I'm entitled to be Homer Simpson for the evening. And this idea of I've got so much to do that I can't focus on the ministry, I can't focus on spiritual things anymore. And I lose my spiritual perspective as I get focused on earthly things. So the risk management process, you identify the risk, you assess the risk and its consequences. What will that mean for me if I'm just tired in the evening and I do nothing? The ministry will not move. My spiritual focus will weaken. It will just not, I won't make a difference with my life in a spiritual sense. And soon enough, I'll find that my life is all about my work, which I don't want. So I assess the risk, what will happen. And then I think about some controls. Let me put some controls in place to help deal with the risk. And there are three controls that I put in place from time to time. I don't do this every single day. I tend to do this when I start to drift. If my focus starts to drift, if my conviction starts to drift, if my devotion starts to drift, I put three controls, simple controls in place. And the first one is this. I say to myself, it doesn't matter how tired I am, I need to do at least one evangelistic thing, something with an evangelistic focus every day. I say it doesn't matter how tired I am, I need to, or how busy I am doing my list of other things I need to do. I need to do at least one thing that's focused, one discipling activity, one thing that's focused on discipling. One that's focused on helping somebody become a Christian, and then one that's focused on helping a Christian to grow and mature and develop. And then I also think, well, I've got to talk to other people about what I'm doing and why. It helps them because they know what's on their heart and they can hold me accountable. But I also talk about it because you know what? Chances are I might talk to somebody who's in the same position that I'm in, and this might actually help him. And I have these as my 3 control measures. And the really great thing about this is that I can feel the sense of, do you know what? When I've done my one thing with an evangelistic focus, that could be a Bible study, it could be I share my faith, it could be I do some follow-ups. I just got to do that one thing in the evening. When I've done my one discipling activity, I could get with a brother, I could go evangelizing with a brother, I could pray with a brother. Don't know what it would be, but I could just do that one thing. And I've had a conversation with somebody. I can then actually feel, do you know what? I can now sit down, pause, rest, relax, recharge my batteries, because I've maintained my focus on what my real reward is. And for me, it really helps to just deal with the stresses, the strains, and the challenges of work, to have that sense of I've got a control in place to help keep me on track. And then after you've got your control measure, the next thing you need to focus on is this idea of monitoring and reviewing. And for all of us as brothers, it's just, I think it's brilliant that we've got discipling relationships that help with this monitor and review process. People that we can talk to, people that want to get involved in our lives, people that you need to, or that there are other people whose lives you need to get involved with to help them with their control measures. But we really are blessed to have our own sort of monitoring and review process built into the way we, or built into the relationships that we have with each other. And I think that if we get this idea of risk management right, we understand what our reward really is, and we manage that risk, it's not rocket science. This idea of how do I do well with work is not hard, it's not complicated. At least for me, it's not hard and it's not complicated. Because all I do is just focus on the risk. I understand what the risks are in terms of me losing the focus on my real reward. So what do? Manage those risks. And then I make sure I keep my focus on my real reward. It's not my work, it's not my job. I remember when I was in private practice, I had a client that came in to see me, and within about 5 minutes, she was in tears. And she said to me that she and her husband had worked together for 20, more than that, but they worked together for 30, 40, 50, however many years, I don't remember. But they got to the point where they put their kids through university, they'd done all those earthly things they wanted to do, the house, the car, and everything else. And then they were looking forward in their 60s to retiring and just enjoying life together. And within a week of retirement, he had a heart attack and died. And she was in tears saying if only she could do things differently and focus on those things that really, really matter. Brothers, for me, and hopefully for you, our reward, we need to remember what our true reward is. And it's not these material things, it's not these possessions, it's not position or power or authority or a sense of pride or fulfillment that we might get from work. It's certainly not the money. Our real reward is that relationship with God. Risk and reward. I hope this helps me deal with, and excel in work and handle the work environment well. I hope it will help you too. Thank you very much for your time.